Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Western Herald Headlined, your show for all things Western Herald. My name is Aidan Ralko, multimedia editor for Western Herald, and today I'm joined by...
Libby Stefanich, photo editor for the Western Herald.
Boom. There we go. Just the two of us here today, but it's going to be great. We're going to talk a lot about journalism and some experience, and as always, we'll throw a little bit of news review in there. So, to start, how's your week been?
Oh, it's been good. It's a lot less busy, as you know. Got that 24-hour film challenge.
Oh, yeah.
So
yes.
That all passed. So we're good. We did College Media Madness. We had that radio show.
Yes.
And we just had the event last night, which was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it hasn't been too crazy. It's been very nice, actually.
Good.
How's your week?
Honestly, slightly the opposite, a little bit, but it's all right. It's all right. Been doing a little bit of running around, but it's good for you, I guess. So
there you go.
It'll be all right. But anyways, to get started, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the projects you're working on in class and kind of how that relates to outside of class experience with Western Herald. So what is the name of the class that you're in right now?
It's Journalism 2200. So it's multimedia journalism.
Awesome.
So it's with Sue Ellen, and she has us do like multiple multimedia projects.
Yeah.
So it's photo, video, audio, and like a feature profile story. And we are currently working on the feature story. But I think my favorite one as the photo editor would probably be the photo essay, actually. Even though I do a lot of like videos on my free time, the photo I got to connect with the people a little more. It was just a couple models from Moda, and I just focused on their work for the spring show. And it was really cool because they both had very different ideas, and they shared wonderful like ways of stitching, and I was like, wow, I'm impressed. But that will be published on my portfolio.
Yeah, there you go. That's great.
Yeah.
Little portfolio builder. That's huge.
Yup, there we go.
I'm interested, how was the experience of doing that for a class and kind of more in an academic setting? How did that compare to some of the work you've done outside of class for Western Herald, which is a more public newspaper and publication?
I think the biggest difference with that project and what I do is I had to like directly communicate with the people I was going to work with, and I got to like connect with them a little more, whereas I am pitched an event and then I go to it, and like I may talk to the person to get their name just for photo captions, but it's kind of more, I wouldn't say surface level, because I'm definitely getting like an experience out of it. But with the photo essay in class to my experience at Herald, it would like, yes, it was for class, but I like did it a lot for myself because I had a little more control of what I wanted to do with it, or like whose story I wanted to focus on, which was very exciting. But again, I wouldn't say Herald is like, my experiences aren't in depth. I would just say I had more time with the photo essay, and Herald is quick.
Yeah.
I had to stay like on task. Where with like the interviews, I could be like, like chit chat with them a little bit. But
that makes sense. And then kind of going off of what you just said with Herald being more quick, how does the photo essay, how does that differ from the kind of the event capturing and stuff that you've done for Western Herald?
Yeah. Photo essay, like I really had to dive into a story. I was given a structure of like, get a POV shot, get a worm, get a bird. Like I had to get a variety of different shots, and then I would send them to her, and then she would critique them and tell me to replace it. Whereas the difference between that and then what I do for Herald is like, again, I think this kind of backtracks on what I was just saying, but I do have more fluidity in what I do with the Herald and how I want the pictures taken. Yeah. Because if I'm at a theater event, I don't want to be super far from the actors, or I don't want a picture of the theater. Like I want the actors. And But in the photo essay, I would probably have to get that.
Yeah.
She wanted like the full story. She wanted the environment. And I would say that is a big difference. And then the quickness. Sometimes I cannot stay at the full event. So I'm getting what I hope to capture the best.
Yeah.
But with the photo essay, I was there for like hours with them.
Interesting.
Just flicking away.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. I've never heard of a bird or a worm shot, but that sounds great.
There you go.
That's sweet. That's awesome. And then kind of jumping off of that and moving into our next topic, kind of the journey of a student journalist, sort of, and that sort of evolution, so to speak. I wanted to ask you, if you remember, what is the first kind of event or task you had for Western Herald?
I know the first event I went to was this faith inner communication in May, I believe.
Wow.
But
there you go.
Yeah, but the very first big one was the center being knocked down, and I tried to do the photo essay.
Yep. Wow.
That was the biggest one because I was going there every day.
Wow.
to get pictures. I was committed.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But that is the first couple of assignments I can remember, and then I went to Julius Caesar. I think those are the three big ones.
Wow.
And those were all great.
Yeah.
All very different.
No, yeah, fun. For sure.
It got me in the field. I was anxious the whole time because I was like, that's the difference now. I snap maybe a couple. I get a lot still, but I only submit my best ones.
There you go.
Before I was like sending in like 10 photos. And I was like
giving everything.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I remember my very first thing that I ever did for Western Herald was back my freshman year when I was staff photographer, volunteering, and Allie Mitter, who was the photo editor at the time, came with me because I didn't know anything about cameras at that point either. I had never really held a camera or messed with settings or anything. And
look how far you are now.
Thank you. Yes, but that event was a Halloween themed improv comedy show that was in this weird hidden away room in the Bernhardt Center. And we went in there or before the event, we were in the hallway and she was giving me a very quick run through of camera settings and how to work a camera basically. And then we went in there and immediately we sat down and they turned off all the lights. Oh. And so she turned to me and she was like, we are not going to be able to take a photo of anything. So then it was just the two of us sitting there and we just sat through this entire improv comedy show for Halloween. And it was,
there you go.
And the guy was pretending to see ghosts and getting people from the crowd to see ghosts. It was very interesting, but
that's fun.
Yeah, that's an event that I will never forget. But yeah. And then, so, kind of like you said, I didn't have any knowledge about camera stuff, and now multimedia editor. So sort of that journey to learn more. What is that? What would you say is the biggest takeaway or thing that you've learned through your continued experience with Western Herald?
Well, I've learned a lot. I've learned more about other cameras too, because I was just working with my Nikon and now Sony. So I didn't really know a lot about Canons, and that's what we work with. And I have learned, and then I've just retained information about ISO and shutter speed, because that would always leave, or f-stops, that would always leave my brain, and it would be flipped. Yeah. My knowledge of it. But I think a big thing I've learned, and I will always say this, is just how to lead a team of multiple identities and multiple different personalities.
For sure.
Because I do think it is necessary for any career. And I think communication skills have improved on my end, and just staying resilient, because I have been insecure in the past of leading a team or not doing my job or coming off rude. And I think I've learned to unlearn that.
That's great.
I think that is, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
because
that's
I'm
huge.
surrounded by awesome leaders at the Herald, and I see how they communicate and I see how they lead, and I'm like, okay, I can do that.
There you go.
So,
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
great. Yeah, I would say for me, similar with the leadership thing, that's definitely a huge one. But one thing that I always kind of think back to for my own experience is through framing, like whether it's a photo or a video.
Yes.
I do think that is the largest takeaway that I've gotten
Me too.
through my work.
Me too.
And I hope it's like somewhat evident if someone were to go back and look at all my stuff then and look at it now. I hope that that's also something that they take away. But I think like trying to learn ways to make something more visually interesting in the way that, whether it's putting it at a lower angle or moving closer, moving farther away, whatever. Like, I do think that that's something that I've gotten to learn more about through just having a ton of practice and going to events that are not that visually interesting and having to take a photo that is interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say for sure framing would be my biggest takeaway.
I can agree with that. I definitely learned the rule of thirds just being like a photographer here, and it does a photo a crazy like it can be a really not the most exciting event, and there are ways that you can definitely capture and work with like the depth of the photo. And I will go off of that of saying like I'm just more comfortable at events now. I'm more comfortable introducing myself to people, or if like an issue appears, like I'm like a little more confident in like my direction of how I want to address like who I am, and I think that has helped. That's a big change in my life. Yeah.
And then to kind of tie it back to the classes and stuff, how do you feel that your experience with Western Herald and what you're doing in class, how do you combine those two and kind of maybe use one to support the other or vice versa?
Knowledge of photo captions. In my class I was taught not to start with the name.
Okay.
And that has been huge in my descriptions. And like I was told by my professor, like quotes are so good for photo captions. And I kind of talked about that on the radio show on Tuesday. But because I want to get quotes, I pay more attention to the event and I pay more attention to the people. And I think that class and my experience with Herald has like improved my attention at these events, because I do want to be considerate. Like you need to have like social awareness to be a journalist, obviously, and I think that just has like improved or increased, and I appreciate that. And I know that might not be like a logistics thing in journalism, but that like the class and the work have.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
And I hope that kind of goes to show to anyone who might be watching that if you're sort of unsure of your skill or in any aspect, that, you know, through doing, you learn stuff and you get better over time. So, but as this podcast is more of a news review podcast, we will review some news. An event that actually has not happened at the time that we're filming this, the International Bazaar. When you're watching this, it will have happened on Saturday. But just to talk a little bit about that event, I actually went to it last year. That was the inaugural meeting, or the first time that they did it, and it was very cool. Once again, another thing where, like, I mean, sort of different because they did have a lot of cool stuff going on, but trying to find ways to make it look interesting in the photo. But they use it as, it's a great place for a bunch of different RSOs and groups and clubs around campus that are more internationally based and have that connection with international students. They can come together and kind of all mix together at one event, and it's kind of like a huge little party with a bunch of different cultures. So it's super interesting. And just kind of talking about the importance of events like that, especially when, you know, these international students are coming from other countries to Kalamazoo, Michigan, where, you know, there's probably not a lot of their culture present. So giving them like spots where they can be comfortable and celebrate like that. I think that's huge.
I completely agree. And things like this need to be covered.
Yes.
And photos, the picture is so important. It just shows the reality of different identities.
Yeah.
Or just different social groups. And I think that is so important because they tell a story and there's multiple things to show. And like events like this are so fun. I used to film for the Global Engagement Program.
Oh, really?
And I just would meet and learn about so many different people, and that is so important for college and just actual life and just growing up. And I stay in contact with some of, because they do model workshops too as well, and I stay in contact with some of the models from those RSOs, and I stay in contact with like the board of the Global Engagement Program.
That's great.
So I do take photos for them, and I enjoy these events, and like I love trying all the foods that I typically would not.
Yep, for sure.
Not typically wouldn't get, but I just wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So it is it's a fun, but you can learn. It's that like if you can't travel, there are like things to do in your local town.
For sure. Yeah, and kind of going off of that, like you mentioned with being exposed to like different foods you wouldn't have come across, stuff like that. That's something that I've always thought is great working, in journalism and with Western Herald, is you do get exposed to a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't have attended without, being sent there to cover it.
Right.
There's a lot of events that I've gone to where it's groups that I'm not a part of or anything, and I just wouldn't have been there without working for Western Herald. And I wanted to ask, what is an event like that you've gone to that you thought was like probably the coolest or one that sticks out to you thinking about that?
Yeah, recently I just went to the Spring Gala.
Okay.
And that was awesome. All the performances were beautiful, and they had boba, and I love
sweet.
boba.
That's awesome.
And they had different tables like Chinese programs or just classes that teach Chinese, and then they had like a video playing before all the performances started of like high schools, middle schools, or
oh wow,
people past education years, so like elderly learning Chinese.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was very cool, and it was just a fun experience. I didn't necessarily meet anyone, but I got to see performances that I don't think are represented a lot.
Yeah.
And they're awesome, like the lighting, the costumes, and like just like some of the choreography and just like stage placement was awesome. I had a blast. I was having fun.
Yeah. I was going to say actually a very similar event, the Chinese Lunar New Year event that kind of took place before Spring Gala back in January, I believe that was. That one was super interesting. It was at the Kalamazoo Public Library, and it was small room, but a lot of people from the community just coming around and gathering. And I learned so much about the Chinese Lunar New Year.
Right, because they had the trivia.
Right, yeah, exactly. And it was all stuff I never probably would have looked into or been exposed to on my own. And then afterwards, I was going through and I was looking up like what birth year and what Chinese zodiac you were and stuff.
Yes.
Like, and then I was texting all my family members like, you are the year of the monkey, you are like all that.
I love that.
Yeah, so that was super exciting. I did find out actually I am being born in 2004, part of the year of the monkey, I believe. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so once again, it's pretty interesting the stuff that you get to see and get the privilege of covering when you do kind of work in journalism, and you can do that at Western Herald.
Yes, you can if you join Western Herald.
Yes. But I think that pretty much covers what we're going to talk about today. Thank you guys for watching. Please remember to stay up to date with all things Western Herald. You can find us on pretty much every social media at Western Herald. It's just that. So go and look for us. And we will see you next week. Thank you for watching.